Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is Paul Hoyt, your host. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All these recording slides and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and the recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these office hours presentations is that we know that being a successful business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You need the education, the training, the tools, and the team to be successful, and we want you to get to know us, because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we care about you. We want you to be successful in every area of your life, not just in business, whatever that success means to you. I want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Hang on just a second. I want to make sure that I am online there for people to see us. Thank you. Our passion here is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find value in these office hours presentations, either live or listening to the recording, please pass the word. There are lots of business owners out there that I think can gain considerable value from the information that we have here and from just the networking that's provided in these office hours presentations. Our office hours agenda is usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle, and then closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session. And then we go into open Q&A and coaching. Today, of course, is a live group coaching call, so we're not going to have much of a canned presentation. We are going to review the last few office hours sessions that we did to stimulate your questions and stimulate your imagination here a little bit. We invite you to join us during the office hours presentation and throughout the day on the Awakened CEO communities in both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we post a business success principle of the day, usually 4 days a week, and I post the energy of the day every single day on Facebook. Today was number 780, I believe, in a row. Today's topic is open Q&A and group coaching, and as always, we try to relate the topic of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of success, and this is really open game for any one of them. So you are welcome to ask a question about any one of the key performance areas of success or anything else about business. We also relate the subject matter of the day to the levels of performance that we have with the Awakened CEO system, and this is open to questions about mindset, open questions about your methods, questions about your momentum, any questions that you have at all about business. Before we jump into the Q&A portion of our call, I want to talk about some previous office hours sessions that we have had. I want to talk about the quarterly planning event that we did on December 5th, office hours number 100, which was on getting stuff done, office hours number 101, which was the 6 stages of raising capital. In our quarterly planning event, we spent a little time focusing on the outcomes of the event itself, talking about the logistics of the event, and then we went into 3.5 hours worth of presentations on critical concepts in business. Then we went into talking about your vision, your status, and helped all of the members who were on that broadcast create their plan. We did not record this because it was really intended to be a very intimate and private and confidential meeting. I wanted everybody that was there to feel very comfortable in speaking up. So we didn't record that session at all. Most of the content is not buried, but available in many of our other office hours presentations. And if you haven't done so yet, I strongly encourage you to think about what you would like to achieve in 2016 and set yourself some I'm going to do it no matter what goals and some stretch goals for yourself so that you can keep your eye on the prize and be able to very clearly express your vision and your intention to other people on your team. At the start of the quarterly planning event, as I said, we reviewed critical concepts. Some of those critical concepts that we reviewed were the levels of performance with the mindset, methods, and momentum. You have to have a very good attitude and a good perspective. That's what the mindset is all about. I say that the mindset is everything about you except for your physical body and your surroundings. Your mindset is your emotions and your thoughts and the ways that you look at things. It's also really important to you that you implement great methods in your business, great policies and procedures and plans, and you have good business processes in place. And it's really important for you to get into action and establish momentum and pick up momentum over time. We also talked about the 3 areas of expansion. My truth, my experience is that business growth, professional growth, and personal growth go hand in hand. If you really want to be all that you can be and have the best performance that you can have and the best time in life that you can have, focus on business growth, professional growth, and personal growth every single day. We also talked about the Awakened CEO growth process, our 5-step success formula for defining what it is that you want to do and then achieving it. Those 5 steps are: first, establish your vision, then determine where you are with an objective assessment of your status, then create a plan to get you from where you are to where you want to be, gather the resources for that plan, and then execute, execute, execute. We also talked about the 5 classes of business, because each one of these classes of business is much different. And if you're in startup mode, that's not the same as being in steady growth mode, which is not the same as being in rapid expansion mode, turnaround mode, or exit mode. You have to really be objective and understand where you are in business so that you can make great decisions and make great plans to advance your business and make great progress based upon where you are. Plans are very situational, and you need to understand what your situation is so that you can make the best plans possible. We also talked about the key performance areas of success, which I talk about a lot: marketing, product development, operations and administration, financial management. Then the more important ones of sales and delivery, and the most important one of all, of leadership. In the following office hours number 100, we talked about getting stuff done. The focus of this entire office hours was on helping you become more productive, helping you achieve your business dreams and achieve your business goals through enhanced productivity. We talked about what a hot topic this was and reviewed the many aspects of getting stuff done and the many ways of increasing productivity. We talked about how important it is to execute, 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 which is a recurring theme that you hear from me, and I think you get nothing else from any of these office hours presentations. It's that execution is vital. It's not good enough to have a dream. It's not even good enough to have a plan or gather the resources. You have to execute day after day after day. You have to boldly get into revenue with your clients, engage with the marketplace, learn what you need to learn so that you can do what you need to do. Execution, I think, is 97% of success. Edison said that success was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I think I add plans in there. I think it's 1% inspiration, 2% making really good plans and gathering resources, and then 97% execution, but you get the drift. In this presentation, we also talked about the 3 aspects of getting stuff done and talked about the difference in between productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. Productivity has to do with the volume of work that you are producing per unit of time. Efficiency has to do with the amount of resources that you are consuming while you are getting that work done. And effectiveness has to do with whether or not what you are actually working on moves you towards getting the results that you want. So I encourage you to think about productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness in your business and go back and review office hours 100 on getting stuff done if you have some questions about what those different definitions mean. Then we talked about 10 different categories of ways in which you could increase your productivity, your efficiency, and your effectiveness. We talked about self-awareness and objectivity. We talked about having a good positive attitude and bringing a lot of energy into your daily work. We talked about changing your environment, changing your physical condition, reviewing your scheduling to be able to be more productive and effective. We talked about prioritization systems and other systems. We talked about focus and commitment and effort, and most importantly, the choices that you have to be more productive and get the job done in your business. In office hours 101, we talked about the 6 stages of raising capital. Many of the clients that I have are interested in raising capital or funding the expansion of their business in some way. So we broke this down in a way that I believe is unique to me in the 6 stages of raising capital. We talked about founders, family and friends, friendly angels, which are the professionals and acquaintances that you know already, other angels, who are typically professionals that you haven't met before, angel groups, and funds and institutional investors, and summed it up a little bit with rounds of funding. I think the most important concept that I represented during that entire presentation was the graph that you see on your screen here today about how much their personal relationship that you have with a potential investor plays into their decision about whether or not to invest with you. The founders, I believe it's usually about 50-50. They're really, because they're putting their own time and money into it and their own good names on the line, they're as interested in the personal relationship they have with you as they are in the business. Family and friends may not care what the business is at all. They may invest with you strictly on the basis of a personal relationship. Friendly angels will invest partially on the basis of a personal relationship and a whole bunch on whether or not the business takes off. And by the time you get to the angel groups and the institutional investors, they don't care about you or the personal relationship, hardly at all. They really do care about the business. It becomes their profession. It becomes their, their really focus of their attention is doing everything they can to select business investment opportunities that will pay them huge dividends down the road. And with that brief introduction, reviewing the quarterly planning event, reviewing Office Hours 100 on getting stuff done, and reviewing Office Hours 101 on the 6 stages of raising capital, we're going to open it up to questions and answers here. First, paying attention to the people who are on the call live who have questions for us, and then we do have a number of email questions that came in as well. But we always do like to give preference to the people who are on the call live. And doing that, by the way, before we jump into that, I do want to welcome a couple of people to the call. I want to welcome Michael to the call, who's been, a steady attendee here for many, many months. I'm glad to have him back. And my favorite audience member of all, my father, Lynn Hoyt Jr., calling in again or plugging in again from Wichita, Kansas. This is Office Hours number 102, and I think he's been here for 90 or 95 of them. So welcome back, Pops. It's really great to have you on the call today. And with that, I'm going to ask Stephanie. Stephanie, do we have any write-in questions or hands up from our attendees?
Yeah, we have some hands up here. I am now organizing with some interns our web design and e-commerce. How do I strategize success steps in creating cash flow?
Well, I think let me see if I can repeat the question here, and hopefully I got it good. So organizing web design efforts, I think in an effort to get into cash flow. And how do you determine what your success steps are to creating cash flow is a really good question. In creating cash flow, I'm going to say that there's three really important steps. Number one step is to really be focused on the value that you're bringing to your clients. You find some pain in the marketplace and then create a product or a service offering that will alleviate that pain. And the reason I say pain is because a universal truth of business is that people will buy Band-Aids much quicker, much easier than they will buy vitamins. In other words, people want solutions to the pain that they're experiencing right now, and they want it quickly, much more so than buying something today like a wellness program or a vitamin program or an exercise program that may pay off tomorrow or next year or the following year. People want immediate relief from pain. So if all possible, we want to find ways to give them immediate relief from pain. So step number one to me in getting into cash flow is really determining what pain you are going to solve in the marketplace. Step number two then is developing your products and services and your marketing messages so that your products and services really do relieve the pain, and your marketing messages so that you can really make a very clear claim about the pain that you are helping people relieve. So for example, in my particular industry, I see lots of CEOs and entrepreneurs that don't know what direction to turn. They don't know what to do next, much like this question is. I have these great ideas and I've got a lot of things that I could be doing, but which one do I do next? It can be very, very frustrating because they know they've got limited time and resources and they're afraid of making a decision that will cause them to spend their time and resources in a way that really doesn't pay off for them. So with our planning services, what we do is relieve the pain of the confusion and the not knowing what to do. Whatever you do in your marketplace, find that pain and leverage that pain, then develop your products and services so that you can really do a great job for people in relieving their pain, so that you can have a great customer relationship and so that people will refer you, and so that you make your good marketing messages so that you can clearly communicate the value of what you do to the clients. Then the third part of that is to actually get into the marketplace. Most entrepreneurs, and by most I mean like 80 or 90% of them, suffer at least a little bit from execution anxiety, from inception anxiety, from the fear of getting started, fear that somebody will steal their idea because they haven't properly protected it, their intellectual property, fear that they'll get out into the marketplace and they won't be able to sell somebody because they haven't practiced sales enough, fear that their products and services won't do quite as good a job as they want them to do. And I do think that caution and preparation is a very, very good thing. But I do also think that sometimes your coach needs to kick you in the fanny and say, just get out there and try it. I know that you're only going to be 70% ready. I know that you're only going to be 80% ready. I know that you're going to continually improve your products and services over time. I know that you're going to continue to improve your marketing materials over time. But whatever you can, get out there, engage with the marketplace. The Lean Startup methodology says before you bring a product to market, talk to 100 people that you believe are in your target market to find out what they really want. And that is a form of engagement. Just begin the conversations with your potential customers. Begin to raise up your hand and say, hey, I've got some really great stuff here. Who wants to buy it? And for those of you who have listened to my Business Survival Bootcamp presentation, you know how emphatic I am about focusing on engaging with the marketplace just as soon as possible so that you can learn the lessons that only the marketplace can teach you. And as soon as you begin that engagement, then be relentless in your pursuit of financial stability. So I'll offer those three things for you when it comes to cash flow. Number one is really understanding in depth what pain you are relieving. Number two is finding products and services and marketing messages that can clearly communicate how you relieve that pain and your ability to actually relieve that pain. And number three is engaging with the marketplace, selling something, asking for the order, and beginning to enjoy revenue. And that's, I think, is absolutely the secret to cash flow. I did do an office hours presentation a long time ago. I think it was office hours presentation number 2 on what to do when you have no money. So if you find yourself in a position that you're really challenged, just go back and listen to that office hours, and hopefully you'll get some good tips from that as well. Hopefully that was helpful to the lady who offered that as a question. Certainly welcome to any sort of follow-up questions that you might have. And in between now and then, Stephanie, do we have any other questions?
We do. I see an opportunity for consolidation in my industry. How do I go about acquiring or merging with some of my competitors?
Wow, that is a high-level question. We get a lot of questions from people who are just starting and growing their business, like the one we just had. What do I do to get started? What's a good mindset for us? The question about acquisitions and mergers is a very high-level question indeed. Typically asked by, and I'm guessing that the person who's asking this question has been in business for a while because they know their industry and they see the opportunity for consolidation, so they're wondering what to do. Well, I think there's a couple of different strategies you can have. One of them is kind of a targeted one-at-a-time strategy that says, of all of the competitors that I have in the marketplace, which ones of them do I think would make the very best business partners? And do I want them as business partners, as in the case of a merger, or do I want them, I just want their customer base, and I want their products, and I want their locations, and I want their inventory, and do I want to acquire them and eventually phase out the relationship with the people who are running the competitive firm. So I think that's the first step is, do you have a specific target in mind, somebody that will help you expand your business in a way that makes sense? Hopefully you find somebody with a common company culture. We've kind of already determined that they're addressing the same customer base that you have. In fact, you might have overlapping customers, but that's not necessarily true as well. So for example, if you have a business that addresses high-end customers, that you have a premium product, but you see an opportunity to expand your business with a lower priced product, perhaps focused at a slightly different segment in your market, then you may not have the same customer base at all. You might not have the same products and services at all, but you may still be able to leverage the brand that you have in place and the team that you have in place by purchasing a competitor that essentially allows you to expand your product line. And almost always when you expand your product line, you expand your reach into the market. So that's kind of a one-off approach. Let's go find one target competitor, really analyze which ones of the potential targets are the ones that we want to go after, and then begin to engage in a conversation with them to see if they're open to the idea of either an acquisition or a merger. And that can be a really good place to get started. But when we think about industry consolidation, my mind went to a much more expansive strategy, which was around what I call the roll-up. So private equity firms will oftentimes look at specific industries and decide that, hey, the industry is ripe for consolidation, that instead of having 6 $1 million businesses, we could have one $6 million business, which would be worth a lot more than the 6 $1 million businesses were if you combine them. The reason why, by the way, a $6 million business is more valuable than 6 $1 million businesses is a couple of reasons. Typically, they're going to have greater profitability because you're able to consolidate things like operations, consolidate your marketing messages, having a common brand reduces the amount of cost that you have to spend on brand awareness, and it increases the name recognition and I think the credibility of the brand too. So there are economies of scale in businesses that combine their operations together. There's also, by the way, curiously, an increase in the valuation multiple. So the valuation multiple of a $1 million business might be 3 or 4 times EBITDA or operating income. But if you had a $6 million business or a $12 million business or a $20 million business, that valuation multiple might be 4, 5, or 6. And the reason is because there's less risk for potential investors. They know just inherently that it's less risky to invest in a $20 million business that's been around for a long time with 6 or 7 or 8 locations than it is to invest in a $1 million business with 1 location that perhaps hasn't been around as long. So private equity firms will oftentimes target very specific market segments and do what they call a roll-up strategy. Here's a little more of that example. Say as I'm in San Jose, California, and I've got a $1 million printing shop. Every year I do $1 million worth of printing services. But I know from being in this business for a while that there are 4 or 5 other $1 million a year printers, and we all seem to be competing with each other all the time, and it takes away from our profitability. And somebody gets the idea that, if we just joined forces here, I think it would be a lot easier for us. We could have overflow capability. One of us could go on vacation and have other people substitute in their shop. We could leverage our marketing resources. We could centralize purchasing. We could buy in higher quantities our paper and our ink and our supplies, and therefore perhaps enjoy a greater margin on those services. So let's do a roll-up strategy. Let's find ourselves a private equity firm that's interested in taking a ownership in that industry, in that specific location, and go after it, because we know that 5 or 6 $1 or $2 million a year businesses, when they combined, are going to be a lot more valuable than they would be otherwise. Private equity firms will typically borrow a lot of money to finance the acquisition. They'll ask the current owners to carry a second so that they don't have to put a lot of their own money into it. It may be that if they buy those businesses, they only have to come up with 10% of the total overall purchase price, because they're able to finance 70% of the purchase price from traditional bank lending, and they're able to finance 20% of the purchase price by getting the current owner operators to carry a second mortgage, in essence, or to carry a line of credit on the business and be paid out over time. And they may only have to put up 10% of the entire purchase price of all of those businesses from their own money. It can be a really interesting play. So when it comes to kind of sum it up, when it comes to acquisition and merger, and when it comes to industry consolidation, you need to decide, first of all, whether or not you want to start with or just end with, I just want to buy one company or merge with one company, or whether you want to go for a more expansive, larger strategy. And if you want to do the larger strategy, my encouragement to you would be to try to find the funding for that, try to find a private equity firm that might be interested in playing that venture with you, playing that game with you before you even get started at the very beginning. So I hope that was helpful to the person who asked that question. And I will see if we have any follow-up questions or any other questions. Stephanie, what do you got?
Next question. I am thinking about franchising my business. What are the pros and cons of franchising?
That's a good one, and I'm going to let Stephanie jump in here in a minute. I'll give her just a second to collect her thoughts because she has considerable experience in franchising. I have, I'd say, pretty good experience in franchising. I've had several clients who were franchisors. One of them I began working with 12 years ago, and I've worked with him and her on several different franchising opportunities. And we do have a strategic partner called Top Level Management that is a partner of ours who specializes in franchising consulting back in Denver, Colorado. So we have some experience with franchising and understand what the challenges are and the opportunities are with franchising relative to other ways of expansion. And there are, by the way, just a couple of ways of expansion. Well, there's a lot of variations on that, but two primary ways of expansion. One is through company-owned locations, and the other one is through franchises. Some very large chains that you're familiar with are all company-owned locations, and other ones are franchises. Starbucks, for example, is all company-owned locations. Every Starbucks that you see is owned by Starbucks corporate. Instead of franchising their concept, they decided to open through company-owned locations. On the other hand, Subway, McDonald's, Quiznos, Burger Kings are all franchises. So instead of the company financing the expansion to a new location, they have afforded other people the opportunity to own their own business by buying a franchise from the franchisor. So those are the two primary ways, company-owned locations or franchises. We do see some businesses that have a combination of each one of those. For example, every location in California might be company-owned, but outside the state of California, we sell franchises. That's a common thing that, well, not very common, but we have seen that from time to time. So those are the two methods of expansion, and they do have their pros and the cons. The biggest pro and the con is that if you are expanding only through company-owned locations, it takes a lot of money. You're the one that has to finance the inventory, the equipment, the early working capital, all of the marketing budgets in order to get that business up and running. With a franchise, it's largely the franchisee, the person who is purchasing the franchise from you, that finances the expansion. They are the ones that are paying a franchise fee and a training and operations fee, and they're the ones that are responsible for the initial build out of their location, for the initial inventory, the furnitures and fixtures, etc. They're investing their money in building your business and helping you expand the business. So those are the two primary differences between franchises and company-owned location. Beyond that, there are a lot of challenges with running a business that you don't have immediate control over. So if you're a franchisor, you have a partnership relationship with all of the franchisees. It's not like you're the boss and they're the employee. You can't just fire a franchisee if they don't show up and they're somehow dishonoring your brand. You have to go through a lot of legal steps in order to force a franchisee to sell their business or to shape up in some way. So as a consequence, you really have to be cautious on the people who sign up to be your franchisees. With a franchising relationship, you only make your money when the franchisee generates revenue. And typically you do make money with 5, 7, or 9% of the revenues that flow into the company actually come into your pocket, either as profit back to you or income to you, or as part of a marketing subsidy or of some sort or the other. You have a lot more control, and it costs more money to have company-owned locations, but you have a lot more control over those organizations and those locations. And if you do the franchisees, it takes less money to expand, but you also have less control, which means you have to be a lot more cautious about what you do. With that, I'm going to invite Stephanie to add some comments, because I know that she has a considerable amount of experience in franchising as well. Stephanie, do you have? I know that you've got stuff to add to me, so add away, my dear.
Franchising is exciting. There have been a lot of changes in the franchising activities in a lot of companies over the last 5 to 10 years, with a lot of changes in the economy. And one of the most exciting changes that I have continued to see is, in the past, many companies had to really create a long history of success with many company-owned franchises or company-owned branches, as you say. And now many companies are finding huge success without owning any company-owned franchises at all. They're all franchisees. So there's a lot of opportunity for companies to expand and grow their business very quickly without a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for, Paul? Without a lot of the delay that sometimes creating your home branches in the past have done. There are many exciting avenues and opportunities for cash, or for creating additional revenue streams, I should say, with your franchisees. One of the more challenging opportunities or challenges that I also see with franchisees, one of the cons is that many states are challenging that the old traditional, you're a franchisor and you're the franchisee, with that delineation of ownership. Some states are really trying to say that the franchisor is the boss of those franchisees. So there are a lot of tax implications and a lot of things that are being looked at within the franchisees and the franchisor relationship that have not been under such intense scrutiny in the past. So there are some significant changes that we see coming with the franchisees over the next 5 to 10 years. But one of the really cool things, and Paul, you talked about this quite a bit, is that there are so many opportunities for expanding your business quite quickly with the franchisee model. And that issue, or the idea of control, how much control do you want over your business, over your products, over that relationship? There are so many opportunities for creating win-win relationships with that franchise model. And that, to me, I think is the most exciting thing, is the opportunity to continue to create win-win relationships.
I like that. I like that. And I really appreciate what you said about the legal complexity as well. So that's another huge difference in between company-owned locations and franchising, is that franchising as a system, as a business model, has a lot more legal complexity to it than does just expanding through company-owned locations. But it can be a really fast way to expand once you get your training manuals in place, your operations manuals in place, and you know how to cookie cutter those things. You don't have to worry nearly about the financing of the whole thing to be able to finance your own expansion. You can essentially get other people to finance the expansion of your system because they want to own a piece of the rock, because they want to have their own business as well. So hopefully that answers your questions. We might, I don't know if we've done an office hours presentation on franchising before, the pros and cons, but we might consider that for an upcoming office hours presentation. You know, probably it would be in March or so before we were able to do that, because we do have the next 8 or so planned out pretty well. So with that, I'm going to invite us to certainly the person who asked the question to ask a follow-up if they like. Otherwise, let's move on and see if we have any other questions. Stephanie, back to you.
Okay. Next question. I want to create my own hedge fund using crowdfunding to get the money. How do I get started?
Wow. Now there's a good question. I think the answer is carefully. You know, I don't know much all about the laws around hedge funds. I know a lot about the laws of raising capital for a private venture, for an enterprise, for a real business. But a hedge fund is not, you know, it's not a business in the traditional sense. A hedge fund is not delivering a product or a service. A hedge fund is taking money and deciding, you know, what other companies to invest in, and it's those other companies that are providing products and services. Most of the Securities and Exchange Commission regulations are around private businesses who are raising capital to either get started or to expand that business, as opposed to funds that are raising capital so that they can invest in those businesses. And that's a huge difference. So there's a whole other body of laws that applies to fund managers. Whether you call yourself an institutional fund with a foundation, for example, or you're a financing company like a stockbroker dealer, or you're some other sort of investment fund, a venture capital fund, a private investment fund, a hedge fund, any sort of fund that takes money from people, promises them a return, and then takes the money that they have and invests it in another enterprise, you know, is by definition a fund and is covered by a lot different laws. So step number one has to be to really understand what the legal requirements are of owning and operating a fund. And then we can understand how we might be able to crowdfund that to get the investments in that. Certainly, here in Silicon Valley, if you're going to open up $1 billion venture capital fund, crowdfunding is not going to work, because you couldn't, if you got $1,000 from everybody who invested, or even $10,000, you're going to have, 1 million or 100,000 different investors in a particular fund. And man, the keeping track of those folks, communicating with those folks, managing the variations with those could be really, really challenging. So my guess is that if you're going to crowdfund to create a hedge fund, that it's going to be a smaller fund. It's going to be a $5 million fund or a $3 million fund, not likely to be a $1 billion fund, or maybe not even likely to be a $100 million fund. You really got to watch out for, the type of people that would be investing in that. Almost by definition, funds are only for accredited investors and institutional investors, not for the regular Tom, Dick, and Harry who's not an accredited investor. So that's an interesting blend. I have talked to real estate investors who may be interested in crowdfunding an investment opportunity, in say an office building. We want to go not build an apartment building or buy an apartment building, and it requires $50 million to do this. We have $30 million raised from our primary investors, but we want to raise the $20 million through other resources. So they will private fund a portion of it and crowdfund a portion of it in order for them to gain all of the capital necessary to engage in that real estate investment opportunity. So I think that there may be a hybrid approach there, where you have a fund that is funded through traditional means with some very large and major investors, and augmented with crowdfunding or much smaller investors. If you just were to do it strictly crowdfunding, I think it would have to be a fairly small fund, because you don't want to have 1 million investors in your fund. The odds of one of those million investors going wacko and causing you a lot of problems is probably 100%. You know, somebody out there is going to go crazy and cause you issues. So you really have to watch out for the legalities, the rights of the individual investors, and the way that you engage with them and the materials that you put in front of them. You know, so generally speaking, if you want to raise more than $5 or $10 million, I'm not sure that crowdfunding is the right way to go. You might, by the way, do a Reg A or a Reg A plus if they allow you to do that. What I don't know is whether you can even do a Reg A or a Reg A plus public offering, miniature offering, in order to fund a hedge fund. It may be that they're only work with private enterprises who are providing products and services to the marketplace, as opposed to funds who are providing, you know, some sort of a financial service to the marketplace. So that's an interesting question that I'm totally unqualified to answer. I gave it my best shot, but my strong encouragement to you is to find an attorney who really understands about the legalities of starting and operating a hedge fund, and what you can do and what you can't do with regards to raising capital, and how that relates to crowdfunding, whether or not crowdfunding laws, you know, will even allow you to crowdfund a hedge fund, because they may be restricted to, you know, traditional companies that provide products and services themselves. Hopefully that was helpful, if nothing else, to give you the encouragement to go talk to somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about, as opposed to me, who just kind of looking at, you know, on the periphery of the hedge funds and the large professional investors. Stephanie, next question.
All right. I have a lot of business ideas. How do I choose between them all?
That is a great question, and I'm a big believer in analyzing all of the business ideas based upon the decision criteria that's most valuable to you. With many of my clients, we have an approach called a decision matrix, and we walk them through the process of really evaluating their different options, of understanding what their decision criteria is, such as short-term cash flow, long-term growth opportunity, the way that it supports my family, the time that's committed, the risk associated with a particular endeavor, etc. And then going through and evaluating their opportunities according to those evaluation criteria, weighting each one of the evaluation criteria, and see what comes up on the other end and what that tells you about what it is that you really want to do. So that's the analytical way of determining what it is that you want to do. But there's also an intuitive or a guided way. So you may just decide to sit in the silence. You may decide to bring the subject up with your masterminding group or your coach. You may get people to ask you what you really feel, what you're really passionate about, what you really want to do, what you really feel the safest in doing, and help you make, you know, an emotional decision about what it is that you want to do. And I think emotional decisions are great, especially when they involve your joy and your passion. You know, if you can find something that you really love to do, that you can get excited about doing and passionate about doing, to me that gets a lot of points over something that you just think might be the best thing to do. So I encourage you to use a combination of a rational decision-making process, such as the decision matrix, and an emotional decision-making process, which is where you're tapping into your inner guidance, where you're talking to people who know you and can really help you figure out what it is that you want to do as you begin to make a decision as to which one of those business opportunities that you do first. And by the way, each one of those opportunities might require just a little bit of analysis so that you really do understand how long it's going to take to be cash flow positive, what the investment criteria is, you know, how many people that you need on your team, etc. Because businesses are not created the same. I talk about that a lot with the business complexity profile. Bringing a consumer product to business, to market, by the way, you know, can take hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of time. Much easier to, say, start a coaching business, which you can start literally overnight. So understanding the complexity and the requirements of each one of the business opportunities, I think, is a pretty darn good first step. And then making both a rational and advised decision and an emotional decision, I think, can be pretty good. Before we jump in and talk about the next question or so, I do have a couple of comments I want to make, which we normally do, but a little bit earlier in the in the broadcast. The distinctions here at Hoyt Management Group is we really do focus with our Awaken CEO system on the whole person. We really do want you to get the support that you want, that you need, that you can use, and that you can afford. We pride ourselves in helping people make sure their next steps are the right steps, and that includes the next step with whether or not to engage with our services and what level of services to purchase with us. Our support services are heavily focused on both planning and execution, with a heavy emphasis on the execution. As I mentioned earlier in the telecast, in the webinar today, it is all about the execution. So we're very eager to help you make great plans and think things through, but we're also eager to stay on your team as COOs, CFOs, project managers, advisors, mentors, coaches, educators, trainers, to help you learn what you need to learn and do what you need to do to get the success that you want. Our next office hours is going to be on January 4th. That's 2 weeks from today. We're going to skip a week and take a little bit of time off for the holidays. And on January 4th, our topic will be leadership. It is the first in a 7-part series, our Foundations of Business series, that we're going to do right after the first of the year. We'll talk about leadership and then marketing, then sales, and have an in-depth discussion of each one of those key performance areas of success so that you can be very well grounded in the foundations of business early on in 2016. If you have any other topics that you'd like for me to address, go to paulsurvey.com and we'll take a look at that and take your suggestions under advisement. And who knows, beginning in the end of February or the 1st of March or so, we may be doing an office hours session on just exactly the topic that you'd like to see us address. So I'm going to go back into our open and Q&A portion of the call right now. Again, my contact information is on the screen. If you care to text in a question, you still have time to do that. Or you can give us give me a call at 415-997-8001 or send us an email at paul@paulhoyt.com. With that, Stephanie, do we have any other questions from folks who are on the call or those who have sent in questions through via email?
Yep, another question.
Okay.
I want to create a one-stop shopping website for my industry where people can come to find everything they need. What advice do you have for me?
I think the first piece of advice is that is a very, surprisingly to many people, a very complex business opportunity, and it requires a considerable investment in time and in money. Because there are a lot of people who would like to set up a one-stop shopping location, and almost by definition you are competing with Amazon online and Walmart online if you're selling products, or you're competing with all kinds of others very well financed ventures if you're not. I have an acquaintance with and a tremendous amount of respect for a guy by the name of Ken Courtright, that is his business, is helping people just like you set up authority sites where that they can sell products and services and also enjoy a tremendous amount of ad revenue because they've generated a lot of eyeballs and traffic. And the key that he puts forth is that you have to be seen as a content expert. It can take you 6 months or a year to be seen as an expert in your industry, and that requires a significant amount of content. I know I met a person just last week who is becoming the experts at 3D printing in the 3D printing industry, and they've been focusing the last 6 months on doing a series of podcasts. I think they're up to 155 podcasts and blog articles and critical review of other people's blog articles, and writing books and having a weekly radio show. All of those things are very important for you to be seen as an expert in your industry and to build up a significant amount of content that you can have on your website that encourages people to come to the website, and so you can be known and recognized as the experts. So before you can become known as the one-stop shop, I think that you have to become known as an expert or the experts in your specific market segment so that you can attract the attention that's required to be able to make good money, either selling other people's products and services, as with the catalog site, and that one-stop shop approach, or through advertising and sponsorship revenues that you can get if you really are getting tens of thousands of views every week or thousands of views every single day. You have the opportunity to sell some real estate or sell some of that mind share to sponsors, and an opportunity to monetize your business through Google AdWords, if nothing else. So you can have ads that are randomly generated, or not randomly, but strategically generated by Google to put on your system, so that you can enjoy a portion of the click-through revenue that they would enjoy when somebody clicks through a reference to a website. So it's not easy, and it takes a long time, and it costs a lot of money for you to be recognized as that one-stop shop. But Lord knows that there are some very successful ones out there, like WebMD, I think, is one of the prime examples. A lot of people go to WebMD to get their simple health questions answered, and they enjoy a tremendous amount of traffic, and they're enjoying a significant amount of revenue through advertising revenue and through affiliate revenue from things that they push forth on the site, which are very targeted and specific based upon the questions that you ask. That's a very classic example of not quite a one-stop shop, but certainly an authority site. So it's my encouragement to you. Be known as an authority first, and then find ways to monetize that either through affiliate relationships with a catalog site or through advertising revenue, or a combination of both. Hopefully that was beneficial to you and helpful to you. Stephanie, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Do we have any other questions on our list of questions today?
That is all the questions that we have. There is one thing that I'm just looking at the questions that we did get. Wait, looks like we've got another one. Oh, Michael is saying, Merry Christmas, Paul. It's been a wonderful year.
I was going to conclude with that today. And since we just started down that, why don't we just go ahead and make that conclusion? Stephanie, are you okay with that, or do you have an urgent question?
No, I don't have a question. I was just we were talking about franchising and consolidating, and I was just thinking that it's the perfect time in our economy for the roll-up strategy with combining and franchising, and I was just starting to get a little bit of excited about that, but maybe too excited. So I think we should do another office hours on that, as you said.
We might do that. And to everybody who's listening to the recording or attending our call live, I want to wish you a very happy holidays, a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and let's celebrate the opportunities that we have here in America to build strong and profitable businesses, and to look forward to 2016 and make this your best year ever. Set those aggressive goals, go for it, get the coaching and support that you need in order to create great plans and execute those plans. So on behalf of Stephanie and the entire Hoyt management team, I want to wish you a very happy holidays. And until we meet again on January the 4th, this is Paul Hoyt wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.